Hello and welcome to Newsworthy Stories with Jacqueline Jimenez. We talk so much about mental health, ending the mental health stigma, but often what happens is you hear that, how do you end the stigma behind mental health? But it's not personal to you. If you're not directly impacted by it, you may think it's someone else's problem. Or, how do I even tackle that? How do I even help in that? And today I'm going to introduce you to three people that are going to help make this something more positive, not more positive, but more personal. And I'm going to really start with Michael Marion, who is the father of a teenage daughter who lost her life or took her life, and also to Joel Smith, who organized an organization because of the way that Alexa that you see here took her life. And it's called Deerfield Beach Community Cares. And Dr. Joel Radlauer, who is a licensed mental health counselor who actually uses performing arts to share the stories of people who have been impacted through mental health. And so, Michael, Joel, Julie, so thankful to have you join me this today. Uh, Michael, can you you know, talk about your daughter to help us to understand what you want us to know about how she took her life and what should we know about this?
Well, Alexis was 17. She was a student at Deerfield Beach High enrolled in the International Baccalaureate program. She was a high achieving young student. She was a math tutor. She was an athlete, swimming, track, played basketball, did karate. She did a number of things. And she became what I would call deeply saddened because I didn't know anything about depression. But once Stoneman Douglas happened back in March or February of 2018, she was she was deeply affected by it, and she was saddened because she lost a friend in there. A good friend of hers cousin actually died in Stoneman Douglas on that day, and that put gun violence on her radar. She became an advocate for that. So she went on to do what she was doing to try and make a difference in that way. She became depressed, showing signs of depression in early 2019 after meeting someone and dealing with the closeness of someone at Stoneman Douglas. They were in a relationship. The relationship ended poorly, but she was dealing with it. What I believe set her on a different trajectory involving with suicide was when her friend Bryce died on December 30th of 2019. And her and Bryce were very close. They talked about their suicidal ideations, their depression, and what they were going through. And they were actually young advocates for mental health. And they tried to make changes within the school, but they really weren't, they were not able to do so. And on February 24th, actually 8 weeks to the day that Bryce died, she stepped in front of a Brightline train and ended her life.
I'm just really just letting that sit in. Um, your daughter was an advocate. She was
She
bright.
was, she did the best. She was exceptionally bright from a very early age. And that's one of the things when people described Alexis, they would talk about one, she was pretty, and two, she was smart. And three, she had a big mouth and a very supportive way of herself. She was outspoken and she definitely spoke against injustices. One thing that we learned, because when she started to show signs of depression in 2019, we had no knowledge of depression. I personally had no knowledge of what depression was. And we started talking to other people. We immediately got her different types of help through my job, through my insurance, and it just didn't seem to work. And one thing I found in talking with Alexis, the people that came to sit and meet with her, in large part, could not really relate to her. They were used to dealing with troubled children or people who did drugs or just people that had issues other than her own. And they didn't really relate or get to know her in a way that would have been more beneficial.
Now, Joel, I know that you created the Deerfield Beach, or the Deerfield Beach Community Cares was created um, because of what happened with Alexa. Can you talk about why and what you're doing there to help prevent something like this from happening again?
Sure, and thank you for having me. And just to start, let me tell you that there's no better advocate in the Deerfield Beach community who has learned more and is more passionate than Michael Marion and his wife Mary. They have taken this tragedy in their life and have, I'm sorry, I get emotional, and have worked hard to help people understand that these issues. And it points out to us that depression is an illness that impacts people of all ages, all sizes, all races, all colors, um, all economic conditions, and it's often misunderstood or invisible to us. About 1 in 15 Americans are diagnosed annually with chronic depression. So it's not hidden; it's there for us to see. I've been doing this work for a long time, across a number of platforms in Broward County, and it became important to me to look at a community rather than a situation. And so often, as funders and as providers, we look at a situation, we come in and we say, we're pretty smart, we can help you fix this. But we fix a piece or we address a piece.
Or
And
react, right?
yeah, and I got tired of that. I got old doing that. And working with Mike and other members of the community, we learned three things. We learned that people struggle to understand where they are or where their loved ones are on what I like to call the arc of wellness, all those things that impact a healthy life. So many parents would talk about their children in these conversations, but the message is these are family issues, these are community issues. The second piece is once someone was ready to deal with it, what do you do about it? How do you get what you need? How do you reach the resources that will help you? And you've heard Mike say he reached out for a number of different resources. Unfortunately, in this case, the resolution wasn't what we would have hoped. And then the third piece was just talking to people across the community. So I wanted to do something different. And I encouraged people like Mike, like some friends at Zion Lutheran Church, to believe in this model of listening to people. People ask me, what's the program of Deerfield Beach Community Cares? And I don't have a good answer for that. Well, I do have a good answer for that. And the answer is, what do you want the program to be? Because this is the genesis of listening to the community, of responding to things that the community feels will be helpful. And just one more quick comment about
Mhm.
that, if you'll indulge me.
Absolutely.
So much of our poverty communities, of our challenged communities, we don't create environments to deal with the trauma of their lives. And so it's a challenge for them to become resilient. And we had a tragedy at Parkland. There's no question about that. And they're entitled to every resource that they could possibly have to help heal and be resilient. We have trauma in many of our communities. And
Just living, right?
if you slam a door at Hallandale High School, those kids are going to hit the floor too. And there's a sense, and it's quite clear, and I'm going to be very blunt about it, that there's pretty much a systemic racist response to the services flowing to Parkland and not to other communities. So this is Deerfield Beach Community Cares is respectful of that. It's not about a bald white guy coming into a community saying, I can fix you, because I can't. It's about engaging people like Michael Marion and saying, what do you want? And how can we help navigate to make those things happen?
Now I want to go back. Thank you very much, Joel. I want to go back and include Julie and Michael in on this next question. Um, Michael, you said something that you didn't recognize depression, but I want to ask you, or Julie first, and then Michael, what signs of depression can people look for that they might not recognize? And then Michael, what what signs was Alexa actually showing of depression that you didn't recognize? Help us understand what are we looking for? What can we be looking for?
Well, I think when you're dealing with somebody who's experiencing depression, some of the signs and symptoms that you might look for is that they're not doing the things that they used to do. So if they enjoyed spending time with friends, now they're being more isolated and they're not spending time with friends. Changes in sleep habits, being generally sad. Depression looks different in different people. So for me, if I'm depressed, I might be really sad, whereas Joel might be angry or assertive or aggressive. And that can be depression. It's the same thing. It's just it's being exacerbated in a different way based on our personality styles. And so it's hard to really concretize and identify what depression looks like because it's different for every person. For
And
me,
through this pandemic, I think just about everyone has gone through a form of depression.
we've all got a little bit of
Or at
something.
least we keep doing this. We go through it, come back, go through it, come back. And that's just a reality. I'm not even minimizing that at all. That is a real reality of a functioning depressionist, if that's a word, you know, is we're going through these cycles.
And to your point, so you asked Michael, like, what did he see or not see? The layperson wouldn't know to call it depression. You just see the actions, the behaviors, the experience of of your loved one, and know that they're off. Something's different. I need to lean in. Hopefully, you notice that. I know Michael noticed that about his, because he has a great relationship with his daughter. But when it comes to these diagnoses of anxiety or depression or bipolar, those diagnoses are here for the healthcare system. So they're there for insurance entitlements, and they're there for helping doctors, prescribe medication so they can understand the symptomology that people are experiencing. So it's more important to look at the person and say, well, what are they experiencing? What's different? What's not functioning for them? And then how can I figure out how to support that?
So, Michael, what signs was Alexa showing that you didn't see?
Well, to what Julie said, when Alexis first started showing signs of depression, it was definitely a sadness, a great sadness. And when I talked to her about it, the word depression never came up. But it didn't come up until she was taken to a mental health professional and diagnosed. And at the time, I had no knowledge of depression or anxiety or any of the other things that they said. But since her death, I've come to realize when Alexis first went and got diagnosed, they said she was diagnosed as with depression and anxiety. Well, not knowing what I know now, I would have asked more specific questions, because to diagnose somebody with that broad of a diagnosis is like saying, I'm in Florida. Okay, but where are you in Florida? Are you in Key West or are you in Jacksonville? I didn't know what questions to ask. And the other thing that I've learned, I don't think there is a specific point of attack when dealing with that. It's almost like, okay, we're going to try this and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. And to what Joel said, in Alexis's case, and not just Alexis, but the people of the young people, even some of the older people of Deerfield Beach, Coconut Creek, Margate, which border Parkland, they saw the resources that Parkland was getting, and none of that came to the surrounding areas. And that in itself added to the feelings that they were having of being less than.
And I understand because I was here. That's my area. I know the resources and I know where that comes from. Are you going to say something, Joel, or were you agreeing with
If
me?
you'd allow me, I'd like to build on something Julie said, which I think is critically important to this and every discussion about mental health. Mental health diagnoses are based on white people. They're based on the history, by white therapists looking at white people. And they historically don't take into account the experiences and the systemic 400 years of systemic racism and things like that, that may look ultimately may be the same illness expressing itself differently. And actually, Julie has done some pioneering work on this, looking at the social determinants of health and how it's impacting our young people. But for example, just very quickly, if we're in a school and we see a 14-year-old white girl that's sitting like this in the cafeteria and isn't talking, as Julie said, we kind of, our mind lights up depression. We're guided to that. If we see a 14-year-old young black girl who we've already adultified and expected her to be something else anyway, because culturally we do that, who responds in a more aggressive way to a stressful situation, we define that as oppositional defiant, kind of automatically, when that could well be her cultural way of expressing depression. So, and we know historically that our mental health system funds white researchers to 85% more than black researchers. So people like Julie are trying to make a dent in that and being respectful and responsive of what some of our younger black and brown children are facing.
Yes, she has. It's actually what caught my attention when I kept seeing Julie's name come in my feed on LinkedIn and what she was doing. And I kept going, who is this lady and what is she doing? Because it was something different than what I had seen. And it just caught my attention and I wanted to get to know her in the first place and understand what she was doing to get the word out about what she's doing. So let's talk a little bit about what you are doing, Julie, but in a different way with This is Brave. Can you talk to us how you're using performing arts? And I've actually heard this before, actually yesterday, as a matter of fact, a couple of people talking about how they are using performing arts to share these stories, and I guess that's a way to ease the stigma, if you will, for mental health, and introduce it without it being so formal.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to talk about This Is My Brave and bring This Is My Brave to Broward County. So This Is My Brave is a national model. And they do this event all over the country. We are doing the second version of This Is My Brave here in Broward County on September 22nd at the Coral Springs Center of the Arts. The purpose of the event, it's an anti-stigma campaign. So we want people to begin to talk about and listen and hear about mental health and substance use. Some very brave people. We have 12 brave people who are going to get up and tell their stories. And the purpose is for them to get up and talk about their experiences, how they've recovered and how resilient they are, and to heal. Because when you talk about what you're experiencing, you can heal from those struggles. And so we know that these 12 people, because we've been in rehearsals for the past several months, they're already healing just by getting up and talking about the experiences that they had. They've been able to support each other, and they've been able to learn from each other. And we know that everybody who comes to the event will have the experience to see this. It's tangible. What I really love about This Is My Brave and expressing yourself creatively is, we were talking all about Alexis and her need for support, and how we just tend to go towards traditional services, formal services, like therapy or psychiatric. And sometimes that's needed. It's not that that's not working. That does work for many people, and it's really important and valuable. And that doesn't work for everybody. Some people need to get their needs met in a different way. And so This Is My Brave offers an opportunity for doing something different, but still dealing with your mental health issues while you're doing it.
Now,
And
we were talking about MSD, but one of the survivors of MSD, is that correct, is one of the people participating.
yeah,
And I was thinking, because when we have done anniversaries for MSD, we did a scrapbook, and There were many letters that they had never seen before during the first anniversary. They had never seen them, but at my church, they asked my church to help put these scrapbooks together of these letters that were sent from all over the country.
Oh,
One of the things that I had asked them during that time when they came to sign the scrapbooks, because we had them sign it, uh, was they just, I said, what do you need? And they wanted to be heard. Their biggest need was to be heard. They wanted somebody to understand what they felt. They wanted a place. And so even these scrapbooks that we were, had in front of them, we said, right, we had blank pages, write down, right? And I mean, it was just amazing. So understand that this is another way. It would be great to introduce them to, I understand the resources here and the resources there, but the problem is the need is the need. And introducing that or making that known to them, we don't have these resources. Can we share those resources there? And if you get a chance to talk to them about those resources, because there were multiple resources for a reason, because they have the means, and we all know that. So it is the means, but but they also are a community that understands, and so they would, if they understood you were hurting, they would probably share those resources, is what I'm sharing.
yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And I feel like that's what I really love about this type of healing through storytelling is that it doesn't come down to resources. Everybody has access, right? So when you level the playing field and take away the formal treatment services and just say, go to church, go talk to your friend, talk to your family. We all have that access. We just have to recognize and get over ourselves, which is the stigma piece of it, right? I'm embarrassed to talk about it.
Oh,
But
yeah.
right. But if you get over that, right? If you see that there's 12 people who are getting up in front of, over 1,000 people, hopefully, and how brave they are, then you could then turn and talk to your mom or talk to your best friend or go to church and talk about it. And then we're leveling the playing field and you're getting it out. You're healing through storytelling. And that's what we want to accomplish.
You just hit something, that an idea, when you're talking about going to your church, you know, um, but using your house of worship to allow the children in your community to do something like this, to
Absolutely.
create it in every one of those houses of worship, so that this would give them a platform. Again, their greatest need that I heard was that they need to be heard.
Yeah.
And so you're setting the example, on September 22nd. So you should go. So everyone should go and see the example, learn how to do it, because, this is my brave will never cover the entire communities. And so you really need places to do the same thing, to repeat what you're doing. Um, because it will never be one place.
Right.
You'll never have enough stories. But if other entities will open their doors and say, "Hey, come together here. You can come, do your, what is it? The poets do, you do the stand up. I forget what it's called, but
Speak
when you just
easy.
kind of speak easy or whatever it is,
A,
come out and
a,
share your story. What is it?
a slam.
Yeah,
Slam.
come
Slam.
out and share your story, come to the mic, share. Maybe you will say it through poetry, however you express it, but they need that platform, and to know that people will come. I did want to end on something else though.
Can I make
And
one
that,
quick comment? Would that be
sure.
acceptable? I just want to say that so Deerfield Beach Community Cares, like all the people on this screen, are great believers in organic, therapeutic, non-traditional therapizing interventions. Because when you do that, This Is My Brave is such a wonderful example of normalizing what human beings are experiencing. There are many ways to do that. This is a preeminent way, but like you said, scrapbooking, journaling, we're proponents of whatever works. So it's, equine assisted or art therapy
Oh
or
yeah,
whatever.
Aquinas
So,
Assisted.
but
Hmm.
it's the
I know
whole
them.
the whole conversation about it is normalizing the human experience so a person can create a relationship, because creating a therapeutic relation is all about a relationship. It's all about people that care about you and that you care about. So that's kind of the framework of Deerfield Beach, and why we were so strong when Julie proposed the idea of This Is My Brave to address stigma in Broward County.
Got
And
it.
to that, I want to say that because it was mentioned to me once before that nothing about us without us. And that's something that This Is My Brave, that because the us changes and the venue where us will meet will change. So Deerfield Beach Community Cares is part of that, trying to increase that venue and reaching out to a greater number of us, whoever they may be, so they have a safe place to speak and feel how they are.
Now, I have to ask this question because I think it's vitally important. And Michael, I really want to hear from you on this. And that is one thing kids and teenagers, they sometimes we get this, the parents, when you're in that time, you know, and they think teenagers don't think parents have feelings, you know, they don't think, you have feelings or they care, like, oh, they don't. But can you talk to the teenagers right now? If you could talk to teenagers about the toll that taking your life means, could you share a message to let them understand that there is nothing that can't be worked out?
That's a tough one because not only does it affect the parents, having been in it, I've seen, we use the analogy of throwing a pebble in a lake. You throw that pebble in the lake and you see those ripples reach out. Well, first and foremost, it will definitely affect your parents and who's ever in that household. I've heard it said that every one suicide affects something like 45 to 60 people. I believe it's higher than that because I see the number of people that are affected by Alexis. So if I could speak to Alexis prior to her death and say directly all the reasons why you should not end your life, it's final. You don't get a second chance from that. And if we can continue to work, in which we did talk about, we spoke of it together a lot. But there's nothing that can't be fixed. And when you're 17 years old, whatever the reason may be, and you get to that point, because your wealth of experience is less than that of an adult, you can't see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is don't end your life, because once you do, that's it. It's over. If we could just get through the next minute, the next hour, the next day, we give ourselves hope and the opportunity to make change.
Yes. And Dr. Uh, I've been calling you Julie all day, and I
Julie's good.
apologize if I'm not calling
Julie's
you
perfect.
Dr. Julie.
Julie's perfect.
It's not just teenagers, right?
No.
The
No.
adults are doing the same thing. We're
Yeah, I
getting to
mean,
that point.
yeah. As
And
you mentioned, our everybody's struggling more these days than prior. All of our numbers have gone up. All of our suicide numbers have gone up.
we're coming to that point where because we keep trying to handle it, and we don't know our tipping point. And I believe that's what happens with teenagers as well, is they just quit. And I think we just get to that point, we just quit.
Yeah.
And that's the fear I have. Yeah.
We don't understand the chemical changes in the body that are depression. I mean, we understand it clinically, but as people there, we always tell people who are depressed, get over it, or you can do this, or whatever. We wouldn't say that. We wouldn't say to someone that they committed cancer. We wouldn't say that they committed a heart attack. We
Right.
need to understand that we stigmatize the suffering, depressed person when we say they committed suicide. Yes, they committed the act, but we have to understand the chemical changes, much like chemical changes from a heart attack or chemical changes from cancer, that are driving this person to what Mike characterized as this absolute lack of hope. And if you talk to people who have attempted to take their life and fortunately have not been successful, they will tell you that they're trying to get relief from the pain, whether it's psychic pain or physical pain.
Oh,
So we need to address that stigma so that they can feel comfortable or more comfortable or feel an opportunity where we're in this together to create a hopeful environment for our loved ones.
And Michael, I just want to also clarify, you've been saying Alexis and I've been saying Alexa. So is it Alexis or Alexa?
It's Alexis.
Okay. Because what I read, it's in a press release, but it says Alexa. And so I apologize for calling her Alexa. If it's Alexis, and I just wanted to clarify that because we want to get her beautiful name right. Your daughter is, when I saw her picture, I was like, oh my gosh, So just precious. And thank you so much for telling her and sharing her story with us. Uh, go be a part of This Is My Brave. Go learn what to do in your own community on September 22nd at 7 p.m. And the ticker's been running along, so you'll know how to reach them, through thisismybrave.org, or you can email Julie at collectivelyus.org, and so on. You've got all the emails there as well. And we just appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us, joining me, joining us, those who are watching, and just being a part of Newsworthy Stories with Jacqueline Jimenez. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.